What would you do if you saw an old man fall to the ground, not because of age, not because of illness, but because a billionaire raised his hand and slapped him? What if that black old man had done nothing wrong, nothing at all, except something that most people would not have had the courage to do? And what if that billionaire, the man in the Italian suit, the man with 11 companies and a name on Forbes magazine, had absolutely no idea? Who was watching? This story is not from a movie. There are no actors here, no scripts, except the one life writes for us when we think no one is paying attention. This is the story of Harold, a 71-year black old man, a retired postal worker from Nashville, Tennessee, a man who walked slowly, loved quietly, and had spent 42 years carrying other people's most important moments in a mail bag on his back, door to door. A man who, one October morning, made a single decision that changed everything for him, for the man who hurt him, and for the small, trembling creature that started it all. Stay with me, because what happens in the next few minutes will shake something deep inside you. And when it is over, I promise you, you will feel something you have not felt in a long time. Justice. Real, documented, undeniable justice. Let's begin. His name was Harold James Whitfield, 71 years old, retired postal worker, a man who had spent 42 years, delivering letters, smiles, and a quiet kind of hope, door to door, across the neighborhoods of Nashville, Tennessee. He knew every street by heart. He remembered which houses had dogs. He remembered which elderly residents lived alone and looked forward to seeing a familiar face at their door. He remembered the young mother who once told him through tears that the letter he delivered that day was the last one her son had written before he passed. Harold kept that to himself. He carried everyone's weight like that, quietly, without complaint. He had been married for 38 years to a woman named Margaret. Margaret, who made coffee too strong and laughed too loud, and believed, with her whole heart, that a person's character was measured not by what they did when people were watching, but by what they did when no one was. She had passed 3 winters ago. Pancreatic cancer. 12 weeks from diagnosis to the last morning, Harold held her hand in that hospital room on the 4th floor. He still made 2 cups of coffee every morning. He was aware that he did it. He could not stop. He walked slowly now. His knees weren't what they used to be. His back carried the weight of decades. But every single morning, without fail, Harold would put on his old brown jacket, the one with the fraying left cuff, lace up his worn-out shoes, and take his walk. Because that is what men of his generation did. They kept moving. They didn't stop. They didn't ask for pity. They just kept going. That Tuesday morning was like any other, cool October air. The kind that smells like wet leaves and something honest. Harold walked along the edge of Maple Creek Boulevard, a busy 4-lane road, head slightly bowed, breathing slowly, watching the world go by the way only a man with a lifetime behind him truly can. He was not in a hurry. He never was anymore, and then he heard it, a small sound, coming from the road, desperate, high-pitched, almost human in the way it asked, not demanded, but asked for help. Harold stopped walking. He lifted his head, and what he saw in the middle of that 4-lane road made his chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with his age, and everything to do with his heart. In the center lane, right in the middle of Maple Creek Boulevard, stood a small golden dog, a beagle. No older than 2 years, shaking, frozen completely still, the way small creatures freeze when the world becomes too loud and too fast and too dangerous all at once. Cars swerved. Horns blared. A pickup truck missed the dog by less than a foot, and from the far end of the boulevard, cutting through the morning air like something that had never learned to slow down, came a sleek black Mercedes Maybach. Moving fast. Far too fast for a city road. Harold saw it, and in that single, God-given, unrepeatable moment, he did not think about his knees. He did not think about his arthritis. He did not calculate the risk or weigh the odds or wonder whether someone else might step in instead. He did not know why his body moved before his mind could stop it. But somewhere deep, beneath the arthritis, beneath the years, beneath every morning he had gotten out of bed alone since Margaret passed. Something older than thought took over. Something that did not ask permission. He had spent 42 years walking toward people who needed something. A letter, a smile, a familiar face on a hard day. And in that moment, on Maple Creek Boulevard, with horns blaring and a small creature shaking in the center lane, his body simply remembered what it had always known. You don't walk away. You never walk away. He ran, 71 years old, arthritis in both hands, a back that ached every morning when he got out of bed, and he ran into that road like he was 25 again. Like his body remembered something his mind had long since put away. He scooped that dog up in both arms, spun his body sideways, stumbled, nearly fell, and pushed hard, back to the curb, safe. The dog was safe. The Mercedes had already screeched to a halt. The door swung open, hard, like it had been thrown. Out stepped a man. Charcoal suit, perfectly tailored. Italian shoes that probably cost more than Harold's entire month of pension checks. A gold watch that caught the October morning light like a warning nobody read in time. His name, as the entire world would soon come to know, was Richard Calloway III, 44 years old. Founder and CEO of Calloway Capital Group, a man Forbes had profiled 3 times. A man who had spent his entire adult life making sure that everyone in every room knew exactly who he was, and he was furious. Richard Calloway III had not heard the word no in 11 years. He had built his life on a single, unspoken belief that the world was divided into people who matter and people who move out of the way. A 71-year-old retired postal worker, standing on a city curb holding a stray dog, fell very clearly into the second category. In his mind, in his world. In the story he told himself every morning in the mirror of his corner office penthouse. What he was about to discover is that the world had a very different story ready for him. Are you out of your mind? His voice cut through the street like something meant to wound. He pointed at Harold, who was still catching his breath, still holding the trembling little dog tight against his chest. Do you have any idea what you just did? You almost made me wreck a $400,000 car because of a stray mutt? Harold looked at him, calm, still, the way only a man who has lived through real loss, real hardship, and real years can be still in a moment of chaos. Sir, Harold said quietly, that dog was going to die. I don't care about the dog. Traffic had stopped in both directions. Drivers stepped out of their vehicles. People on the sidewalk turned. An older black woman in a nurse's uniform stood with her hand pressed to her mouth. A young father lifted his daughter so she could see. A delivery driver leaned against his truck with his arms crossed, watching every second. Calloway fed off the audience. It made him worse. He paced. He talked about his companies. He talked about his lawyers. He talked about how men like Harold don't understand how the real world works. He talked loud enough for the whole block to hear every word. Do you know who I am? He said. I have 11 companies. I employ 4,000 people. I built everything from nothing. And I will not be delayed on my way to a board meeting by some old man chasing a street dog. And then, without warning, without any reason beyond pure, weaponized arrogance, Richard Calloway drew back his hand and slapped Harold across the face, hard. Harold fell. The little beagle yelped and scrambled away from the noise. Harold lay on the pavement, 71 years old, his cheek burning red. His hands scraped raw against the cold concrete. The man who had delivered hope for 42 years was lying on the ground that morning. Not because he had done anything wrong, because he had done everything right. For a moment, nobody moved. The kind of stunned silence that falls when something happens that the human mind refuses to immediately process. Then the delivery driver said it. Not loudly, almost to himself. But the street was quiet enough that everyone heard. He just hit that old man. The nurse was already moving. The young father put his daughter down and stepped forward. 2 other drivers had their phones up. Calloway looked at them, at all of them, with the contempt of a man who had never once faced a consequence he could not buy his way out of. Calloway straightened his jacket. got back into his car, and drove away without a single backward glance. The nurse ran to Harold. Someone offered water. Hans reached down to help him up, but Harold, slowly, quietly, with more dignity than that street had ever seen, reached into the pocket of his old brown jacket and pulled out his phone. He dialed a number he knew by heart. It rang twice. "Hey, big brother." The voice on the other end was warm, steady, the kind of voice that has been trained, for years, to stay that way no matter what it hears next. Harold's voice cracked. "Just slightly. Just enough, Tommy. Something happened. I need you to listen." And right there on the sidewalk, sitting on the curb, his hands still shaking, his cheeks still stinging, Harold told his brother everything. The road, the dog, the car, the man, the slap, the fall, the crowd that watched and could not stop it. He described the building on the corner, Ridgewood Financial Center, 4th and Maple, the sandwich shop across the street, the direction Calloway's car had gone. Harold's voice did not break again. It steadied itself, the way he had always steadied himself. And he told the story the way he had learned to tell hard things. Clearly, completely, without asking for anything in return. Thomas Whitfield listened without saying a single word. Thomas had always been the quiet one. 9 years younger than Harold, the one who finished his homework before dinner, who never raised his voice, who sat in the back of the church and sang every word without looking at the hymnal. He had gone into the army at 19, not because he was looking for war, but because he believed, the way their mother had raised both of them to believe, that some things in this life are worth protecting. 2 tours overseas had not broken that belief. They had sharpened it. For the past 14 years, Thomas Whitfield had served as a senior investigative agent with the FBI's Nashville field office, Financial Crimes and Civil Rights Division. He was not a man who spoke about his work at family dinners. He was not a man who needed to. The people who needed to know knew. And the people who didn't, well, they usually found out eventually. When Harold finished, there was a short silence on the line. Then Thomas said, quietly, calmly, with the weight of someone who has seen exactly what justice requires, "Don't move. I'm coming to you." Thomas Whitfield arrived at 4th and Maple within 18 minutes. He hugged his brother first. Long, quiet, the kind of hug that says everything that words cannot hold. He looked at Harold's cheek. He looked at his hands. He looked at his brother's eyes. And in them, he saw something that made his jaw tighten and his resolve lock into place like the bolt of a rifle. Then he straightened up, took one long breath, and went to work. He gathered contact information from every witness who remained. The nurse gave a formal statement on the spot. So did the delivery driver. Phone footage, already recorded by multiple bystanders, was secured and preserved. Then came the cameras. Ridgewood Financial Center was a modern high-security building, and modern high-security buildings have cameras, good ones. Within the hour, a formal FBI evidence request had been submitted. By that afternoon, footage from 4 separate exterior cameras had been pulled, including one mounted above the main entrance with a clear, unobstructed view of the entire boulevard in both directions. The footage was devastating for Richard Calloway III. Every second of it was there. The Maybach approaching at 52 miles per hour in a 30-mile zone, Harold running into the road, the rescue, the confrontation, the crowd, and then, in high-definition, time-stamped clarity, the slap, the fall, an elderly man on the ground, and a man in an Italian suit walking away without a single backward glance. The license plate was traced in under 4 minutes. The vehicle was registered to Calloway Capital Group LLC. Calloway's own executive assistant, when reached by phone, inadvertently confirmed he had been in transit to a board meeting on Maple Creek Boulevard at that exact time. She had no idea what. She had just confirmed. The arrest did not happen quietly. It never does, not when it matters. 2 officers and a federal agent walked through the glass doors of Calloway Capital Group at 10:47 in the morning. The receptionist stood up. The assistant by the elevator pressed herself against the wall. 3 junior analysts in the open plan office watched over their monitors, very still. The way people go still when they understand that what they are witnessing is not a drill and not a mistake. Richard Calloway III was at his desk. His coffee was still hot. His phone was face up, mid-scroll. He looked up. And in his eyes, for the first time in a very long time, there was something that money had never been able to purchase and power had never been able to manufacture. Recognition. The specific, sickening recognition of a man who finally understands that the world kept a record. He did not struggle. He did not call his lawyer loudly, the way he might have rehearsed in some imagined version of this moment. He stood up slowly. He let them put the cuffs on, and he walked out, past his assistants, past his partners, past every person whose respect he had spent years engineering, in silence. The building cameras caught every second of it. The charges were serious. Aggravated battery on a person over 65, enhanced under Tennessee law, because the law understands that attacking the elderly means attacking those who have already given everything. Reckless driving, and as investigators pulled the thread further, financial irregularities within Calloway Capital Group surfaced, triggering a separate federal inquiry. The criminal result, an $85,000 fine. 18 months suspended sentence, 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, license suspended for 1 year, and 3 weeks after the arrest, his board of directors asked for his resignation. The man with 11 companies lost the only thing that had ever truly mattered to him. His name, his reputation, the story that followed his name in every search, every article, every introduction for the rest of his life was now a single, permanent, unremovable word: assault. And the little beagle? She was found 2 days later, healthy, no chip, no registered owner, at the Nashville Animal Care Center. Harold went to get her on a Thursday afternoon. He drove slowly, the way he did everything now. He walked into the shelter. He sat down on the floor, bad knees and all, and she climbed straight into his lap without hesitation. Like she already knew. Like she had been waiting for exactly this man, in exactly this brown jacket. At exactly this moment, he named her Grace, because Margaret used to say, in that quiet way of hers, the way she said everything that mattered, that grace is not something you earn. It is something that finds you, when you are ready, when you have done enough of the right things for long enough, that the universe decides you have been alone long enough. Harold sat in the car for a long time before he started the engine. Grace was curled on the passenger seat, her small warm weight pressed against the fraying cuff of his old brown jacket, the same jacket he had worn the morning he ran into that road. The same jacket he had worn for 42 years of delivering something to someone. He thought about Margaret. He thought about the road. He thought about the slap and the fall and the cold of the concrete, and the face of that man walking away. And then he thought about this small warm weight pressed against him. This quiet, trusting, completely unashamed love sitting right there on the passenger seat. Harold did not cry in the shelter. He waited until he was in the car. Then he did. For a long time. For Margaret. For the years. For the loneliness he had never once complained about. And maybe, just a little, for the grace that had finally found its way back to him. Harold still walks every morning, Maple Creek Boulevard, same route, same time. His knees still ache. His back still carries the weight of decades. But now, trotting beside him on a red leash, ears flopping with every step, nose pointed at everything the morning has to offer, is Grace. People stop him sometimes. Neighbors who saw the story, strangers who recognized his face. They shake his hand. They tell him he was brave. Harold thanks them quietly and keeps walking, because that is what men of his generation do. They keep moving. They don't stop. They don't ask for applause. They just keep going. Here is what I want you to hold on to from Harold's story. Harold did not run into that road because he calculated the risk and decided it was acceptable. He ran because kindness, real, deep, bone-level kindness, does not calculate. It does not pause. It does not wait to see if someone else will go first. It simply moves. He ran because 42 years of delivering hope to strangers had made something permanent inside him. a reflex, a calling. The kind of goodness that doesn't announce itself. It just shows up at 7 in the morning on a cold October boulevard when the moment demands it. And the man who tried to humiliate him for it? The man who thought that money and power and a Forbes cover made him untouchable? The man who walked away from an old man lying on the pavement without a single backward glance? He had no idea who was on the other end of Harold's phone. He had no idea that integrity leaves a paper trail. That cameras don't forget. That witnesses remember. That justice, even when it is slow, even when it feels impossibly far away, has a very, very long memory. You are never as invisible as the powerful think you are, and your dignity, no matter your age, no matter your bank account, no matter what anyone says to you or does to you in this life, is worth defending. Every single time, without apology, without hesitation. If you are over 50, you have already lived through things that would have broken someone younger. You have already shown up for people who never thanked you. You have already carried weight that was never entirely yours to carry. You have already lost people, to time, to illness, to the 1,000 quiet ways life takes things from us, and you kept going, just like Harold. This story is for you. For every person who has ever been dismissed because of their age. For every person who has ever been made to feel small by someone louder, richer, or more powerful. For every Harold who ever ran into the road, not because it was safe, but because it was right. The world needs more people like Harold, and I believe, with everything I have, that you are one of them. If this story moved something in you today, please share it. Not for an algorithm, not for a number. Share it because someone in your life, a friend, a neighbor, a brother or sister, a parent, needs to be reminded that good people are not alone in this world. That courage is still real. That justice still comes. Share it with someone who has been feeling invisible lately. Share it with someone who did the right thing and paid a price for it. Share it with someone who needs to know that the universe is still keeping score, and that it is keeping score for them. Drop a comment below and tell me. What would you have done if you had seen that slap happen right in front of you? I read every single one, every comment. I want to know what kind of people are watching this. And if you are still here at the end of this story, I already have a pretty good sense. You are the kind of person who stays, who listens, who feels things fully and doesn't apologize for it. If that sounds like you, hit subscribe. Because every week I bring you stories exactly like this one. Stories of real people, real courage, real justice. The kind of stories that remind us what we are actually made of. Because at the end of the day, it is not the ones with the most money who win. It is the ones with the most heart. And Harold, walking his morning route with Grace trotting beside him, already won a long time ago. The moment he chose not to walk away.